Eleanor sat on her porch, staring at the garden she used to tend with such care. The roses were still blooming, but her thoughts were far from flowers. After retiring last fall, she had expected a life of freedom and rest. What she hadn't expected was the slow, creeping anxiety about money. Not immediately, but down the road. The rising costs, the limited pension, the shrinking interest rates on her savings. It all made her wonder, was this really sustainable? She pulled out her old spiral notebook, the one she used for grocery lists and holiday recipes. Across the top, in bold capital letters, she wrote, "Passive income for retirement." She didn't want a new job. She wanted freedom. She needed income that didn't come from punching a clock. Her first idea came from a memory, her guest house. Years ago, her late husband had built a small unit above the garage for visiting relatives. It had become storage over the years, cluttered with boxes and forgotten decorations. She cleaned it out, gave it a fresh coat of paint, added some cozy furniture, and listed it on a short-term rental site. Within a week, she had her first guests, a couple visiting their daughter at the nearby college. The money came in quickly. Then more bookings rolled in. A traveling nurse, a writer, a man in town for a wedding. By the end of the first month, Eleanor had made nearly $1,300. The best part? Aside from cleaning and a few emails, it ran itself. That taste of success lit a fire in her. Next came something she hadn't thought about in years. Her writing. Before she retired, Eleanor had written training guides for new employees. One of those guides, she realized, had real value. She edited it, cleaned up the language, added a few chapters, and turned it into an ebook. After uploading it to a self-publishing platform, she waited. The first sale came in a week later. Then another. Then 5 more. It wasn't life-changing money yet, but the fact that something she wrote years ago could now generate income without her lifting a finger was deeply satisfying. As she researched more options, she stumbled onto dividend investing. Stocks had always intimidated her. She thought it was a game for risk-takers, not someone like her. But dividend-paying stocks were different. These were companies that shared profits regularly with shareholders. It wasn't about fast gains. It was about steady income. She started small, a few shares in established companies. She didn't gamble. She picked blue-chip stocks, utility companies, and consumer goods businesses. Every quarter, a few dollars showed up in her account. It was slow, but it was steady. By month 4, her dividends were enough to cover her monthly electric bill. That changed the way she saw investing. Not as a gamble, but as a tool. One afternoon, while talking to her neighbor Tom, she learned about high-yield savings accounts and CDS. "I moved my savings to an online bank," he said. "I'm earning over 4% interest now. Way better than my old bank." Eleanor followed suit. She opened a high-yield savings account and transferred over her emergency fund. Then, she locked away a portion of her savings into a 12-month CD. It wasn't flashy, but now her money was actually growing while it sat today. 4 ideas down. She was halfway through her list, but she already felt more in control than she had in months. If you're finding inspiration in Eleanor's journey, take a moment to subscribe to Finance Family, where real stories turn into smart money moves you can use for life. The 5th idea came from a box under her bed. It was filled with photographs from her travels over the years. Sunsets in Santorini, quiet corners of Venice, the foggy cliffs of Big Sur. Her nephew, a graphic designer, visited one weekend and spotted the box. "Aunt Ellie, these are amazing. You should upload them to stock photo sites. People pay to use these." She spent the next few days curating her best shots and uploading them. It took time, but she enjoyed revisiting old memories. A few weeks later, she got her first royalty payment. Just a few dollars, but it felt like magic. Her old vacations were now helping fund her retirement. Next, she turned to peer-to-peer lending. A friend from her book club had mentioned it casually. You lend small amounts to people online. The platforms handle everything. You get paid back with interest. Skeptical but curious, Eleanor did her research. She spread her investment across dozens of small loans to reduce risk. Slowly, the repayments began. Some people paid early, some a little late. but overall, she was earning around 5% annually. It wasn't huge, but it was consistent. Then came idea number 7, digital products. She had always been organized, especially with household budgeting. Over the years, she created spreadsheets for meal planning, monthly bills, tax prep, even holiday gift tracking. Her granddaughter suggested she package and sell them on an online marketplace. You'd be surprised, Grandma. People pay for this kind of thing. Eleanor gave it a try. She bundled a few spreadsheets into a downloadable planner and uploaded them. It took a while, but then came the reviews. So helpful. Exactly what I needed. Each sale brought in a few dollars, but over time, it added up. The best part? She didn't need to create anything new, just offer what she already used. She had almost reached the end of her list, but one last idea stood out. REITs. Real estate investment trusts allowed her to invest in real estate without being a landlord. She bought shares through her brokerage account and received dividends monthly. She didn't have to fix toilets or chase tenants. She just watched the income appear. By the end of the year, Eleanor's notebook was full. 8 passive income streams. Some small, some growing steadily. But together, they gave her something more valuable than money: confidence. She no longer feared the future. Retirement no longer felt like a dead end. It was a beginning, a chance to live fully, with security and purpose. Eleanor poured herself a cup of tea and looked over the spreadsheet she'd built to track her new income streams. There were columns for each idea: rental income, dividends, royalties, digital sales, and next to them, modest but growing numbers. It wasn't a windfall, but the beauty was in the consistency. Small drips filling a larger bucket. Her mindset had shifted. Passive income wasn't about getting rich quick. It was about creating systems that worked quietly in the background, giving her space to enjoy life on her terms. One Saturday morning, she walked through her local farmer's market, not to shop, but to enjoy. No guilt about spending. No stress about bills. Just peace. She realized something then. It wasn't just about money. It was about control. She no longer depended solely on a pension or government check. She had options. She had built a foundation. Months later, her friend Marlene came over for lunch. They hadn't seen each other since Eleanor's retirement party. "You look lighter," Marlene said. "Happier." Eleanor smiled. "I am." Over lunch, Marlene asked how she was managing financially. Eleanor opened her notebook and walked her through each of the passive income ideas, one by one. "This is incredible," Marlene said. "I thought passive income was just for young tech people or real estate investors. I never imagined it could be this practical." "That's the thing," Eleanor replied. "It's not about age. It's about using what you already have: skills, space, habits, and turning them into assets." She shared how she'd turned her old guest house into income, her photographs into royalties, her spreadsheets into downloadable products. She explained how investing didn't have to be gambling, how lending platforms could be stable if used wisely, how high-yield accounts and REITs added value without needing constant attention. "It started small," she said, "but over time, it added up. And more than the money, it gave me freedom." Marlene listened closely, and by the time she left, she was buzzing with ideas. That night, Eleanor sat down with a journal and reflected on her journey. A year ago, she had felt uncertain, even scared. Now, she felt capable. She wasn't wealthy, but she was resourceful, and that made all the difference. She had even started teaching a small group at her local library, retirees looking to understand passive income. They shared ideas, encouraged each other, and celebrated small wins. What began as a personal journey had quietly grown into a community. Eleanor had always believed retirement was an ending, but now, she saw it as a blank page, and she was finally holding the pen. As she closed her journal and turned off the lamp, she thought of the woman she used to be, nervous, cautious, unsure of what came next. That woman still existed, but she'd been joined by someone new, someone curious, empowered, and in control. The next morning, she brewed her coffee, checked her rental calendar, reviewed her dividend payments, and smiled. She wasn't just surviving retirement. She was funding it, on her terms. If this story inspired you, Make sure to like, share, and comment.